Дякую! Давай!
At 5:15 hours local time, Ukrainian forces from the 12th Special Forces Brigade Azov have carried out a series of attacks against Russian military movements in the frontline region, highlighting the growing role of drones and rapid battlefield reconnaissance in Ukraine's continuing war against Russia. According to footage released by the Ukrainian unit and reported by Ukrainian media, Azov drone operators recently targeted a large Russian military convoy moving behind the front line near Malinivka. The Ukrainian side said the convoy consisted of numerous vehicles carrying personnel and supplies and was operating roughly 20 kilometers from the line of contact. The incident illustrates a central feature of the modern battlefield in Ukraine. Russian forces can no longer assume that movement several kilometers behind the immediate front will provide protection from observation and attack. Convoy detected and targeted. The Ukrainian says Russian vehicles were traveling in a concentrated column when they were detected by Ukrainian reconnaissance drones. FPV strike drones were subsequently directed toward vehicles in the formation. Footage released by Azov reportedly shows individual vehicles being struck as the convoy moves along roads in the Donetsk region. Ukrainian identified light trucks and pickup-type vehicles among the targets. The significance of such an attack goes beyond the destruction of individual vehicles. Military convoys are used to move ammunition, fuel, personnel, and equipment between rear areas and forward positions. Disrupting those movements can force Russian units to disperse their vehicles, slow resupply, and alter routes. The claims surrounding battlefield strikes remain difficult to independently verify in real time. Videos released by either side can provide evidence of an engagement, but they do not necessarily establish the full number of casualties or the broader operational effect. Azov's expanding role. The 12th Special Forces Brigade Azov is a formation of Ukraine's National Guard. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with the brigade's personnel in March 2026 when officials said the unit was involved in defending positions around Rodensky, Biletsky, and Shikove, and in slowing a Russian offensive in the area. The brigade has increasingly emphasized unmanned systems alongside conventional infantry and reconnaissance capabilities. Its own public communications have highlighted drone operations, infantry activity, and specialized training as important elements of its combat role.
Oh, shit! Be careful! It's not fucking shooting!
The broader Azov formation has also been involved in some of the heaviest fighting around the Pokrovsk area. In July, Ukraine's National Guard commander said forces belonging to the 1st Azov Corps helped stop an attempted Russian assault involving elements of 2 Russian combined arms armies and the 90th Tank Division. Ukrainian officials said the assault involved dozens of armored and light vehicles and continued for several hours. Russian officials have separately acknowledged fighting involving Azov units, although Russian and Ukrainian accounts differ substantially over battlefield losses and the results of individual engagements. A battlefield increasingly dominated by drones. The reported convoy strike is part of a much larger transformation in the war. Small first-person view drones have become one of the most important weapons used by both Russia and Ukraine. Relatively inexpensive aircraft can provide reconnaissance, track moving targets, and attack vehicles or personnel. Ukrainian drone teams have also demonstrated their capabilities during military exercises outside the country. During the Swedish-led Aurora 26 exercise, Ukrainian personnel from the 1st Azov Corps participated in opposing force operations alongside other Ukrainian units. Their experience from combat in Ukraine was used to demonstrate how drones and electronic warfare can change the battlefield. A battlefield once divided into a front line and a relatively safe rear area is becoming far more transparent. Vehicles that previously could have traveled considerable distances without being immediately observed may now be detected by drones operating continuously overhead. Russian movement under pressure. For Russian forces, the growing effectiveness of Ukrainian surveillance creates a difficult logistical problem. Large concentrations of vehicles can be detected more easily than dispersed movements. Yet dispersing vehicles can make logistics slower and more complicated. Russian commanders therefore face a continuing balance between moving supplies efficiently and reducing the risk of detection. The same problem applies to troop movements. When soldiers move toward forward positions in groups, reconnaissance drones can potentially identify their routes and relay information to strike teams. When movements are broken into smaller groups, the risk of detection may be reduced, but the process becomes slower. Ukraine seeks to disrupt Russian logistics. Ukrainian military planners have increasingly focused on striking not only troops at the front, but also the systems that sustain Russian operations. Recent Ukrainian battlefield reporting has described attacks on Russian supply routes, vehicles, and logistical infrastructure. Analysts have also pointed to the expanding use of medium-range drones against targets deeper behind the front line, allowing Ukrainian forces to put pressure on Russian logistics beyond the immediate battlefield. The strategy is intended to make it more difficult for Russian units to maintain the tempo of offensive operations. A destroyed vehicle is therefore only one part of the calculation. If an attack forces a convoy to change its route, delays ammunition deliveries, damages communications, or compels Russian commanders to dedicate additional troops to protecting logistics, its operational consequences can extend well beyond the immediate strike. The human cost. Behind the tactical descriptions are soldiers facing the direct consequences of the war. Ukrainian and Russian forces continue to suffer casualties across the front, while civilian communities near combat zones remain exposed to artillery, missiles, and drones. Claims about enemy losses are frequently issued by military authorities and cannot always be independently confirmed. For that reason, battlefield reports require caution. A video showing a vehicle being struck does not by itself establish how many people were killed or wounded, nor does it demonstrate whether an entire military operation was defeated. What can be seen more clearly is the changing character of combat. The Ukrainian military is increasingly combining traditional infantry and artillery operations with networks of reconnaissance aircraft, FPV drones, electronic warfare systems, and remotely operated ground equipment. The result is a battlefield in which information can be as important as firepower. A continuing contest for the Donetsk front. The reported Azov attack comes as fighting remains intense in eastern Ukraine. Ukrainian officials have described Russian assaults in the Donetsk region, while claiming that Ukrainian forces have slowed or repelled several Russian advances. Russian authorities, meanwhile, continue to report attacks against Ukrainian military positions and claim progress in other sectors. Independent assessments suggest that the front remains fluid, with localized advances and counterattacks rather than a single decisive breakthrough. Recent reporting has also described Ukrainian territorial gains in parts of the broader eastern and southeastern front, while warning that the fighting remains far from over. For Azov and other Ukrainian units, the immediate objective remains practical: detect approaching Russian forces, disrupt their logistics, and prevent assaults from developing into larger breakthroughs. For Russia, the challenge is equally clear. Its forces must continue moving troops, ammunition, and equipment across a battlefield increasingly watched from the air. The reported strike near Malinivka is therefore more than another isolated drone attack. It is another example of how the war is being reshaped by persistent surveillance and inexpensive unmanned weapons. As the conflict enters another year, the ability to find an enemy formation may be nearly as important as the ability to destroy it. And for soldiers moving along roads behind the front, the assumption that distance alone provides safety is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain.